Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. As today we got a fun video for us today as we are making our bracket for the Stanley Cup Playoffs this year, as I am very pumped to predict this playoffs, and I'm very excited just to get involved with this playoffs this year once again. I think every year we get to the playoffs, I just get extremely pumped up and ready to go, and I always love making a bracket. Is one of my most favorite things to do. So before we get into all this, guys, I'd like to just say, if you are new to the channel, make sure to smack that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. That'll be very much appreciated, boys. So we're going to be making our bracket today. Now, I'm going to be also involving my dad. Dad on the radio will also be joining us. He won't be joining us by call, but I did talk with him last night, and he made a bracket with me last night. And so we're going to be talking about his bracket alongside of mine. A lot of our brackets have some pretty good similarities up until the conference finals, and I'll be talking about what his thought process was alongside of my thought process on who's going to win the cup this year. So let's get right into this bad boy. So, of course, we'll start off with the Western Conference, I think. The very first series between the Colorado Avalanche and the Nashville Predators. So, my thought process with this series here is that I do truly believe that, of course, Colorado's going to win this series, and I think they're going to win it pretty easily. They're just a better team. They are just overall right now better. They have a better goalie, and unfortunately, UC Saros is right now down and out with an injury. He might miss the first 2-3 games. So, and if you're gonna have your big goalie and UC Saros not playing, I really don't have very much belief in your team. Colorado, they just, they're going to be demolition derby, I feel, in the playoffs, but they could also falter, I think, as well. So we'll have to see how well they do. But I do believe the Colorado Avalanche will take it in round one, just because they're a better team. Goals for wise, they're a better team. Goals against, they're a better team. Power play, even their PK, goaltending, they will probably even have their full lineup out there. And we really haven't seen the full lineup from the Colorado Avalanche through majority of the year, whether it be injuries or them just, letting players rest. The Colorado Avalanche are doing usually what the Tampa Bay Lightning does, where they just kind of relax off a little bit, and then once they get to the playoffs, they play really hard and really good. So I think that's the way that the Colorado Avalanche are going to be coming into the playoffs and playing that as well. Next up is the Minnesota Wild versus the St. Louis Blues. Now, this series was a hard one to choose, to say the least. Both teams very similar. They're both very offensively dominant teams that do generate a lot of offensive chances. They finish their chances. Minnesota is just an elite team at, finishing whatever chances they get. They don't generate a whole lot of goals for, but every time they get an opportunity, or if you turn it over, or if you give it away to them, they're going to make you pay for it. And that's the way that the Minnesota Wild will play. And I feel like the Minnesota Wild is going to be a really good team in the playoffs. I know that people have been talking about St. Louis being a really good team, and I think that could go either way in this series. I believe Minnesota Wild will walk away with this series. I think Fleury will take it a step up coming into this round, and I honestly think Minnesota's defense will also take it a step up against the St. Louis Blues. I like the addition of Jacob Middleton. I like their second line. I think they're really going to be a deadly team coming into this upcoming playoff run, and I believe they can go, honestly, pretty far in this playoffs as well. So I'm going to be choosing Minnesota against the Colorado Avalanche for the next round, in round two. Minnesota, St. Louis has a lot of good things about them too. The only thing I wasn't a big fan of is their defense. That's the one thing I'm kind of scared about, is their defensive core. I don't think it's going to take a very long unless Ville Husso pops off. But even then, this is really Ville Husso's first playoff run. So how well will he do? Will he be a consistent goaltender for the St. Louis Blues? Who knows? So that's why I am deciding to go with the Minnesota Wild in this case, and choosing them over the Colorado, or over the St. Louis Blues in that first round. So next up, Calgary versus Dallas. I think this is a pretty easy one. Calgary is just the better team. The Dallas Stars squeaked in. I'm not a big fan of Dallas Stars even winning this series, or even winning a game. I just think the Flames are a playoff team. They really are. They are built like a playoff team, and it's pretty hard to be able to beat a playoff team like the Calgary Flames. They are such a good team. They got a great coach in Sutter, who is great at coaching teams, especially once they get to the playoffs. The type of coaching that he brings is exactly what you want for a team that's going to be making it into the playoffs. Up next, we got the Edmonton Oilers versus the LA Kings. I think you guys already know my opinion on this one, but the Edmonton Oilers, I feel like, are going to win this one. I think they're just the better team in this case. LA Kings on Drew Doughty. I'll be talking more about it in my preview that will be going up tomorrow. But I just believe that, the Edmonton Oilers, they have a good offensive core. The defense, is a little iffy against the LA Kings, but they don't have Drew Doughty in the lineup, which I think is a huge loss for the Kings. But I do believe the Edmonton Oilers will be able to take it, and I'm going to be predicting in 6 games for the Edmonton Oilers, a sweep for the Calgary Flames, 5 games for the Colorado Avalanche, and 7 games between the Wild and the Blues. So those are my predictions. Now, for my dad's predictions, Dad on the radio, he went with the Colorado Avalanche in round 1, so exactly with what I did, but he had them in 4 this time around, so he predicted that round to finish up in 4 games. Then we got Minnesota and St. Louis. He did the exact same thing as me. He chose Minnesota, and in 7 games, he really likes the Minnesota Wild team, and he also really likes Colorado, and he thinks Colorado is just going to full-on sweep and be a really dominant team in the playoffs, and you kind of see a little bit later on. Calgary versus Dallas. He thinks the series will actually be going to 6. So he thinks the series will be prolonged a little bit longer and thinks the Dallas Stars will be able to push. And he does the same thing as me. He believes Edmonton will win in 6. He actually has a little bit more belief in Edmonton. We'll get into that a little bit later on as well. But he likes the team Edmonton. He thinks it's a great matchup against the LA Kings. And I agree. Like, Edmonton Oilers have a great matchup against the LA Kings. Not such a great matchup against the Calgary Flames, but we'll be getting into that much later on. So moving forward, we got the Florida Panthers versus the Washington Capitals. Now, in this series, of course, you guys all know what I'm going to choose, the Florida Panthers. I think they're going to just cakewalk the Washington Capitals. They were kind of cold coming into this series. They don't got a great goaltender right now, whether you got Samsonov or Venasek. I'm not a big fan of it. Their defense is okay. Even Florida's defensive core is a little bit better than Washington, and Florida is not exactly amazing at defense right now. Florida's offense is deadly, better than compared to Washington, so I believe Florida will easily sweep the Washington Capitals in the first round of action. I think that's without a doubt an easy one. Now, Toronto and Tampa Bay, in some cases I wanted to choose to Toronto, but like I said before, I'm never believing in Toronto again, because every time I've chose them, they have lost massively. Like last year, I chose them to win and move on and actually do quite well in the playoffs, and they blew it mightily. And so they screwed up my entire bracket. So that is not happening again. And we are choosing the Tampa Bay Lightning in this series. I do like Tampa Bay Lightning's odds. Toronto does have a really good defensive core. I do give them that this year. They do actually have built a pretty good defensive core with Giordano that they picked up. It's not the worst thing in the world that Toronto has built up, but I still do like Tampa Bay's odds. I like their forward core in Tampa. I liked what they did with picking up Hagel and Paul. I think they massively improved their team, and I think they're going to be moving on to the second round to face the Florida Panthers once again. Carolina versus Boston. I think Carolina takes this one. Boston has been they're still good, but I think Carolina is just going to be a better team. I think they're really going to come out red hot. They've been red hot, and I think they're going to be able to go out there round 1 and just kick some major ass. And then next up, Rangers and Pittsburgh. Sadly, Pittsburgh, and also sadly, Carolina doesn't have Frederik Andersen either. I still chose them because I believe they should be able to beat Boston. They only have Swayman and Ullmark, and compared to Antti Ranta, I think he can carry them at least one round. Rangers and Penguins. I think the Rangers are going to win this one without Tristan Jarry as your goalie for the Pittsburgh Penguins and having to rely on DeSmith. I really don't believe it's going to work out very well for them, to be quite honest with you. And I think Shesterkin's going to be a better goalie than DeSmith, and I think he'll be able to really carry the Rangers going into the second round. So I will definitely be choosing the Rangers in this case, and I'll be choosing the Rangers in 5. The Bruins and Hurricanes in 6. I think it's going to be a pretty competitive series. The Panthers, I believe, will be sweeping, and same with the Florida or the Tampa Bay and Toronto series. I think that series will go to 6. So now, for my dad's predictions, he chose the Florida Panthers to win in 7. He thought the Washington Capitals are going to be a little bit better in this series. He believes that, since they've been in the playoffs many times before, they'll be able to kind of push the needle against the Florida Panthers a little bit better, especially since Florida's defense is not as strong as usual. So he's thinking that series is going to be really competitive and push to 7 games. Toronto and Tampa Bay, he believes Toronto's going to win in 5. He was saying that Austin Matthews has been killer this year, and they have multiple other players that have been just absolutely deadly for the Toronto Maple Leafs this past little bit. So he really believes the Toronto Maple Leafs are finally going to persevere and make it to the next round to go up against the Florida Panthers. So that's a big one there. And then he chose Carolina in 4, so he thinks this one's going to be a clean sweep. And then he chose the Rangers, same as me, this time in 7 games against the Rangers. So now we're on to the next round, or round 2 we got. So, of course, we'll start off with the Western Conference again. Colorado and Minnesota. I honestly believe this one will be an upset, and I believe the Minnesota Wild will move on to the next round. So the reason why I did this is because we need some hot takes. When you make a bracket, you can't just go along with choosing the best team out of every single team. But I believe the Minnesota Wild is going to go really deep this year. I like the team that they have. I know there's multiple people saying that they don't got the mustard, the way that they play won't work in playoffs, etc., etc. I believe that this year will be different for Minnesota, though. I believe Fleury's going to get either Fleury or Talbot will get themselves going. I believe with their really strong defensive core, I think they could go a really long way, and I think they'll be able to shut down a lot of the top guys of the Colorado Avalanche. We've seen it many times before where Avalanche get into the second round and they falter, and I believe the Minnesota Wild will be able to push them. I believe it's going to be a very long series. It's going to be a very long and prolonged series, but I do believe the Wild will be able to defeat the Colorado Avalanche, and I'm guessing that series will go to 7-2. Of course, there's no predictions, but I'm just putting it out there. And then, of course, I'm choosing the Flames. I just think the Flames are a better team than the Edmonton Oilers. My dad chose the Edmonton Oilers in this case just because the reason why he was thinking that was just because, the games that we did lose against the Flames this year, we were injured. We didn't have healthy bodies. We weren't playing too well. We were adjusting to Dave Tippett's, we had Dave Tippett as our head coach. We had Jay Woodcroft. We were adjusting to Jay Woodcroft. So he was just saying that those were fluke games and we should be able to beat the Calgary Flames going into the second round. So that's definitely a hot take from my father, but hey, I mean, anything can happen in the playoffs, and I could see that too, but I just see the Flames, especially once you get into the playoffs, I think the Flames are just going to be a better team in general, and it's going to be very, very hard to beat the Flames. Moving on to the Eastern Conference, I'm choosing the Florida Panthers just because I think they're really going to be the team that wins the cup. So there you go. I already blew my load. I already told you guys who's going to win the cup. So you guys already know what's going to happen with the rest of the bracket. But I really do believe that Florida is going to pop off this playoff run. I know a lot of people have been predicting them to lose early, either in the second round or whatever, but I believe Florida is going to go in deep this year. They're my favorites, and that's the team I'm going to go with to win the cup. And then I believe Carolina is going to win. I believe that they'll probably get Frederick Anderson by that time, and hopefully they'll be able to win another round. But the Rangers could possibly pull away with that series victory as well. But the only thing that was troubling me was the 5-on-5 play for the Rangers. I wasn't a big fan of that. They weren't great offensively throughout the year. So that's why I'm choosing the Carolina Hurricanes. I feel like they're going to be a better team 5-on-5 wise, and I think they'll be able to dominate. Just the big thing is, can they get good goaltending? And that is the biggest question heading into that round. My dad chose, of course, Edmonton to make it onto the conference finals. Colorado to beat the Minnesota Wild instead of that. You also had Toronto beating Florida, and then Carolina beating the Rangers as well. So, same as me. So moving into the conference finals here, I chose the Flames and the Florida Panthers to go up against each other in the Stanley Cup Finals. Now, I believe massively that the Flames should be able to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, honestly, especially with the route that they have. The toughest matchup they will have to go up against is in the conference finals. I think they'll be able to easily cakewalk the Pacific Division, and then the conference finals will probably be their toughest matchup, but I believe they do have it against the Minnesota Wild. and I think they could play. Both teams are pretty even, but I think with Gaudreau and Kachuk and a really good solid defense core there in Calgary, I think they would be able to dominate the Minnesota Wild, especially if Jacob Markstrom catches a flame. And I believe, like I said, Florida Panthers, I just believe they're going to be the team to watch out for, and I think they're going to be the team to win the cup this year. And I'm choosing 42 goals to do the tiebreaker. And my dad, he chose Colorado and Carolina and Colorado to win the Stanley Cup. So he chose Colorado, and I chose Florida Panthers to win the Stanley Cup here for my NHL 2022 Stanley Cup bracket. As there you guys go. Tell me, guys, in the comment section how you guys thought. I think Florida is going to be a beast of a team this playoff run. I most likely will be wrong. I'm wrong almost every time I make a bracket or predict anybody to win a cup. I'm most likely wrong, but we might as well give it a go and see if I could get this one right. But make sure to like and subscribe, guys. Make sure to go check out my new video as well. I uploaded not that long ago a NHL 22 playoff simulation, so make sure to go check that out as well. It was an amazing video. Go see who EA predicts to win that Stanley Cup. But for now, guys, I'm going to end the video here. Thank you very much for watching, boys, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Adios, amigos.